based on what she said, I had to sit with myself for a second and say, what are you doing? Are you courageous enough to admit that you don't know?
Mm-hmm.
Are you courageous enough to take the next logical step to be able to close your gap in knowledge? Are you going to be courageous enough to create some type of dialogue and conversation once you know more? And are you going to be courageous enough to take that next step to help become an ally?
Mm. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening and watching the Major Pane podcast, the only podcast crafted to guide men like you on unraveling your uniqueness to transform the world around you. If you are a lady joining us, feel comfortable to listen as we hope women learn how to build better men through the golden nuggets we will be sharing and learning. Follow this podcast wherever you are listening and kindly subscribe. And if you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll be aware whenever a new episode is uploaded. Men, as we know, we have come a long way from different eras. That is from survivor of the fittest to now almost becoming like second-class citizens in this day and age, and where subjects like diversity, equity, and inclusion are becoming the pillar of society. As men, we struggle with this conversation as this topic requires great enlightenment, which many men aren't aware of. Today, joining me to unpack this hot and spicy conversation is Herbert Lee Berllinger. He is a dynamic, inspirational leader, trainer, and coach. He is a certified executive purpose and men's empowerment coach. His certification is through the Symbiosis and the Certified Coach Alliance. Wow. Herbert is a former executive in the restaurant industry with a positive track record. He has worked at the following restaurant: McDonald's, Pizza Hut, KFC, among other credible food chains, to improve their sales, their leadership skills, and mode of operation through his unique strategic and tactical practices. Wow, we have a gold member in the house. Welcome, Mr. Herbert.
Thank you. I am humbled to be on your show, so thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for accepting this call. You know, I feel so excited each time I get to see great men and unique men like yourself coming into this podcast and, accepting the call and bringing in their expertise and knowledge and experience. And, it's such a great blessing to have you, for real. Welcome. Thank you. And I would like to say, because I know you have such a great portfolio, and my audience are really excited to, they want to know more about you as well. So I will give you the floor now. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and what is your purpose in life.
Thank you. And welcome everyone who's listening. Like Paul said, hey, I'm an executive and life coach, and I help entrepreneurs, executives, and business leaders improve work and life balance, their strategic thinking, and their leadership skills. But specifically, my niche is to really lean in and help men in discovering their purpose in life and feeling more empowered in everything that they do. My purpose is to first honor and glorify God. I'm really set on just doing quality work and to be able to use my God-given talent to make a difference is what I'm set out to do.
Awesome. Wow, that's a very short, concise, and impactful purpose statement you have right there. I really like that, and I admire when I hear people with a purpose statement. That is just I call purpose like a compass, right? That just helps you navigate through, life itself. And that is such a great purpose statement. Now, about our topic, which is just so spicy, when the first time we had this conversation, I was just like, so excited about the topic itself, because I find it very relevant. And I really I want you to share your thoughts about men's performance in this era of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
First, I want to say that everyone has a diversity, equity, and inclusion story. I believe that DEI is a human need, not just necessarily specific to any race or gender or specific class. It would be exclusive to not say that it's a human need.
All right. Now, speaking of human need, right? And, like a lot of men are struggling with just understanding and unpacking the whole DEI aspect, right? Because, like earlier on when I was introducing the topic, I said that, men, we've come from different era, like era of survival of the fittest. Now there's DEI. And first of all, let's say we just start, because a lot of my audience, some of them are even from Africa, Nigeria, and other African countries where topics like this are not really discussed. They don't even understand. And I also have some new immigrant listeners to, like, African men or other people from different parts of the world who are coming into Canada, where diversity, inclusivity, equity, like these are topics that are just like all over the place. So how about we start by just unpacking, say, maybe we can help define these items, you understand, right? So that they can understand what it is.
I think that when you unpack, let's just start with diversity.
Yeah.
Is that you and I, if someone see us, they see us as Black men.
Mm-hmm.
However, we have our own story. We have our own journey. My roots is from here in the United States, and growing up in the inner city. Your roots are in a different place.
Exactly.
Right? So I think when people see us, they should say, let me understand Herbert's and Paul's story and their journey when it comes to diversity, to be able to have a level of appreciation for us as men. When it comes to equity, do we have the same rights and privileges? Are we exposed to the same types of people or organizations or education to be able to have an impact on society, or to enrich our lives, to be able to take care of our families? I've had certain things that I've had the opportunity and the privilege to benefit from here in the United States that may be different from you or different from another listener. So we may not have the same exposure to leaders in education, for example. When it comes to being inclusive, we want to have this feeling of belonging. If I was in a group of people from Africa that you associated with, I'm not sure, although my skin color is same, that I would feel like I belonged. Right. So how do I now get this feeling from another group of Black men to where now I have a feeling of belonging? And it can go either way.
Makes sense. Awesome. And now you speaking about just from the man to man kind of social construct. So what about when it comes to relationship itself, like between men and women? How do DEI, how does that look like, and how does that operate?
So for every man, for every person on this earth, I want to reiterate that everyone has a different story and a different journey. Here or across the world, the hottest topic today, and we're still celebrating March as Women Appreciation Month. But it's really that I can't say that I know enough about the topic of understanding a woman's journey with DEI. So I had to ask myself this question as I was thinking about this topic. Is I had one or three choices. Is I can sit on the sideline and become a spectator. I can decide that I'm going to buy a ticket in the cheap seats and throw shade and criticize. Or I can say, I don't know enough about this topic. Let me study it. And so how can I lead from the front and be able to have this impact? Because I understand it from my wife's point of view and my sisters and my daughters, but that's a little bit different than understanding of someone that's outside of my circle.
Yeah.
And being able to think about myself as a leader, how can I learn more and add value?
I see. Now that makes sense. You're touching around the enlightenment piece, which we'll be getting to. And so first time when we had our conversation, you had been mentioned about men having certain type of privilege over a long time. And, we get to ask ourselves questions like, how have men used those privileges? Can you please speak more about this and expound on how men can use their privileges to, say, build women and the society we find ourselves in?
I think that, as we think about over time, that men have been in position of leadership for long periods of time. And women have, as they continue to emerge and become more present as leaders, have been treated a certain way that is different. We've been exclusive versus inclusive. Women today still make only 70 cents on a dollar compared to their male counterparts. So when we think about that men today are still in a position to have in positions of leadership, and they're also in a position to use their influence to make a difference.
Yeah. And now using yourself as an example, I feel like let's now start diving into those organic examples, because some people listening, they're just like, just scratching their beards and trying to see, how does this translate to me? Yeah. How does this translate to right now where I am, either as a single guy or as a husband or as a father? What can that translation look like in terms of,
I think the first step, the first logical step is to be honest with yourself, to say, do you know enough? For me, I had to be vulnerable, and we're going to talk about that word here in a second.
Exactly.
But I had to be honest with myself to say, I don't know enough. So what it looks like for me is to continue to approach this like I approach any topic that I'm looking to learn. I'm looking to understand diversity, equity, and inclusion holistically, and how it has an impact on everyone in our society.
Yeah.
Number two, specifically as it relates to women, is to understand that every woman has their own personal DEI story and journey. And can I ask the question, to show concern and respect to the women that I'm surrounded with, or anyone on social media, to get permission to say, can I understand your story? Because everyone has a story. And I've been doing that. I'm not only on social media, but I've been doing that in my own life to try to understand every woman's journey. And the key is really to ask permission to ask the question, to not to seem intrusive. And then the last thing I'm asking that I could do, because I'm not sure how to get started, but I wanted to get started, was to ask the question of each individual that I'm talking to is, how can I help?
How can I help? That's a good question. So it's more like one asking questions, not to, like I always say, asking questions so that it won't be intrusive, right? And are there, say, some peculiar examples that you might have, maybe from the top of your head, about, say, if a man is not pretty much enlightened about DEI, what are some of the, say, can I say, negative examples, or maybe reactions that he is likely to get? What does that look like in this day and age?
I think the only negative reaction that a man would receive is if they were approaching the topic without a level of respect and sensitivity that it deserves.
I see.
So, the old saying, when I was coming up, my mother used to always have the saying, is that if you don't have anything good to say, then don't say anything at all. And then the second thing would be, go to school on the topic. I think that the negative pushback would be, you're outdated, you don't know what you're talking about, you're out of school, because you haven't gone and done your homework to be able to ask for permission to have a seat at the table to add value.
I see. And like narrowing it now to say relationships and men's vulnerability. So I had put out a video just, I think, some time ago with another guest speaker who spoke on men's vulnerability. And someone asked a question, and it was like, what would you say about females who do not want their partner to show vulnerability? Do vulnerable guys have to suck it up, or do they need to move out of their relationship?
That's a good question. So the first thing I think about when I think about the word vulnerability is to try to unpack the word. And I think vulnerability to me is an output. It's something that I'm going to do. But then I started thinking about, what does it take to be vulnerable? It takes to be strong. It takes to be courageous. It's brave. You're taking a stand. You're raising your hand from a position of strength. So although the output may seem like it's vulnerable, but the everything that it takes is from a position of strength.
I see. So it's more like guys shouldn't be scared of the word vulnerability. Rather, they should see it as coming from a position of strength, right? And so say for this guy, for instance, who is asking this question and say, yeah, he's like, okay, I'm going to be vulnerable from a position of strength. I don't know if maybe you can help with, and I'll just give you I'll just give you an example, right? Let's see how we can, help this brother to translate this, like what we're about to say, into his life. Because I've now one peculiar example I know of is, say, a guy, for instance, who, well, I don't want to say he's not so confident in himself about some certain things. And then she knows, for instance, that, okay, this particular thing bothers him. You understand, right? And she, instead of her to somewhat like be helping him out, she's making fun of him, or she's blasting him about those areas and just rubbing it on his face and all that, because she is kind of like, she has the privilege to know those information, right? And of course, this thing definitely would tip any guy off. You understand? Because you want your partner to be like your strength, your source of strength, your encourager, and all that. But of course, I've understood that it's not all women that really come that get to understand the role they play and how much of an influence they have to that situation. So now the guy might be thinking like, oh my gosh, like because I had to let this thing out, she is making fun of me. And it just makes him like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to be vulnerable anymore. I'm just going to be strong all the time. And that just brings more issues. In that kind of scenario, which I believe almost every guy listening to this, we have been in that kind of situation. What would you say? What would you say? You talking about being vulnerable is speaking or leader from your place of strength. Now, how can we translate that into this kind of situation?
The first thing that I would say is that I'm in control of the who, the what, and the when. I'm in control of who I'm vulnerable with. I'm in control about what I decide to be vulnerable with them with about. And I'm in control of when I decide to be vulnerable.
Wow.
The second piece I would say is that understand your core values and your strength and your purpose as a man, and allow that to be the thing that shields you from any type of negative or controversial feedback about you as a man. Those are the things that you're going to have to lean on, because I get to decide today as an individual what type of man I'm going to be, and how can I live through that purpose and those core values and those principles as a man. But here's the other thing. Vulnerability is a part of life. In the conversation that you had brought up with him and his partner, and him sort of being teased about that, or I was vulnerable at one point in time, and now this is coming up later in the conversation, has been happening to men or either other people in relationships throughout time. I think those things are just common. So I would say that know that it's coming, right?
Ooh,
potentially.
I like that. I like that. Know that it's coming. Yes.
Know that it's coming. And so then you're not surprised by it. You're expecting some form of it, and you get an opportunity as you role play with yourself about the who, what, and when, about being vulnerable. You get to role play how you're going to respond.
Boom. I like that. Yeah, you're going to role play how you respond. So it's more like taking the initiative and just reflecting on these things which you've just said right now, and practicing these things, and say, okay, so I'm going to just imagine a situation that, say, I have been failing before, or maybe a situation that, she blasted me about this particular thing and I didn't handle it properly. Now, how can I handle that properly? How can I flip the table in a way that I can speak from a place of strength and not get tipped off about this issue all the time? Great.
Yeah, it's really about strength and confidence, right?
Yeah.
So when we think about this for a second, right? If we were going to prepare for a job interview, we would prepare for every question. We would prepare for our response.
Yeah.
We would prepare for the questions that we would have.
Yeah.
Right. And job interviews have seemed to be some of those most important things that happen in life. But we don't take that same approach when it comes to our relationships. How are we thinking about, as we're approaching a situation, to have a conversation with our significant other, of not only role playing the question, but role playing the response that you're going to get,
Mm-hmm.
and role playing the questions that you think that you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the time, these conversations, sometimes they happen and they're impromptu,
That's
right?
true. Yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah.
other times it's like, hey, babe, can we have this conversation? Hey, can we chat for a second?
Mm-hmm.
But you already know in some form or fashion, you're going to get a question. But here's the thing you're in control over. You're in control over the 3 to 5 seconds that it takes to think about the question and respond, just like you would in an interview.
Yeah.
You're in control of that. You can say, you can either do that to give yourself some time, or you can repeat the question to be able to give yourself some time to think about a response.
Wow.
But responding is important.
That is very, very profound, because what you making me understand, and which I believe what my audience is hearing, is that we have the power, we have the strength, we are in control of the situation. And the moment we start seeing ourselves as being in control of the situation, that really helps us take the lead. I'm strong for being vulnerable. Yeah, because I think that's another reason. A lot of guys, when they hear vulnerability, they think of weakness. Yeah. And what do you think about that, though?
I think that every word depended on, so I would say this: words matter, right? And in the sense of words mattering, the context in which you use a word has a very significant impact on the conversation.
Yeah, I see.
And for me to use the word vulnerability, remember, I think that vulnerability is an output, and it takes courage. But hey, I am human. I am a man. I have thoughts and I have feelings.
Yeah.
I just want to have an opportunity to be able to share those thoughts and feelings. I need to be able to speak up for myself. I need to be able to set positive boundaries, what's in and what's out.
Makes sense.
I need to be able to respond in such a way where it still fits my character of who I am. So when I think about the word vulnerability, I would say, if that word is not an approachable word, then pick a different one.
I like that.
But it's a word, and the only reason I'm using the word like vulnerability, and it's because that is the word that's out there today.
Yeah.
Right? Vulnerability in leadership, being a daring leader. That's the word that's out there. And so for me, when I think about interacting and engaging with that word of being vulnerable, I think for myself, I need to stand up for myself. So no, I'm not going to be quiet, because sitting on the sideline is, to me, a sign of I'm not being as courageous as I possibly can.
Exactly.
Because I'm afraid of what people are going to say, or what people are going to think, or the reaction that they're going to have. So being vulnerable and courageous at the same time, I think, goes hand in hand.
Yeah, exactly. No, they really go hand in hand. And I would say that one of the moments of my life that I can say, man, I would use the word that I won. That's just how I say it. Because, we men, we tend to have this vision of almost everything like a challenge, like a battle kind of thing. So, but if I'm to say, like, the moment I would say, yes, I won, were the moment I was most vulnerable at.
Yeah, I would say this, right? I mean, I think I'm glad you're bringing up winning and the battle, right? So I had this wise leader that said something to me years ago about battles and winning. The first thing he says, you really have to ask yourself 3 questions. The first question is the battle worth fighting? Right? So internally, I have to ask myself, do I really want to stand up for this, right?
Yeah.
And then he says, the next question you have to ask yourself is, can you win?
Mm-hmm.
And then the last is more of a statement, but you can turn it into a question. It's define winning.
Good.
If winning means you feel bad, you make the person feel bad about themselves, but you feel good about yourself, I'm not sure if that's winning.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think if we both walk away with being able to express how we feel and our thoughts and have our questions asked, that is positive dialogue. We both win. We may not necessarily agree, but we have this level of understanding and respect for each other.
Yeah.
Because I gain nothing in my life by winning an argument with my wife. Okay, that's nice.
No, that's it. No, what you said, it's in line with what I'm saying. Because for me, winning is not about hurting the other person, but it's about defeating that pride in me. That's the first thing. Second thing is getting to a level of awareness that, oh, this is it. This is that one thing that, maybe I haven't been able to share. This is that one thing that I've been struggling with. This is that one thing that, I feel like is holding me back, but now I'm able to face it, approach it, and maybe just say it or just do it. And now I'm like, yeah, like I feel good. Even if, yes, it might position me to be a weak person or, just the strong man I used to know, no problem. But at least I'm giving myself an opportunity for growth because I now know what I didn't know before. You understand? So to me, it's more like, yeah. And so when you're saying about vulnerability, it's like one can be vulnerable is also being strong. I completely agree and admit. And now talking about the word in itself, I would encourage anyone who's listening to this that we might want to reassess that definition of vulnerability, right? And start seeing it that it has strength inside of it and not weakness. And it's like a rebirth, more like you need to unveil something, right? In order for you to enhance that thing, right? In order for you to do better with it. Yeah, this is great. This is,
I tell you, one of the things for me, the reason why the topic around DEI is important. It's important to me. Besides the humane aspect of it, when it comes to it, again, I think everybody has their own story, but specifically women and having this impact was this LinkedIn post that I had looked at on day one of the Women's Appreciation Month. And an influencer, she's a great marketer, typed in, hey, I'm paraphrasing, but hey, fellows, hey, men, we really appreciate your liking our posts. We really appreciate your positive comments. But what we really need is we need allies. We need your help to help protect us from this misogynistic attitude or interaction that some people on this platform is having with us. And just for me to be able to say that, and I did this post about me exploring and learning more about it, was me being vulnerable, because I didn't know what kind of reaction I was going to get. I don't know what kind of reaction that we're going to get from having this conversation.
Exactly.
But based on what she said, I had to sit with myself for a second and say, what are you doing? Are you courageous enough to admit that you don't know? Are you courageous enough to take the next logical step to be able to close your gap in knowledge? Are you going to be courageous enough to create some type of dialogue and conversation once you know more? And are you going to be courageous enough to take that next step to help become an ally? So that for me is what I'm doing now. Is I have no idea what the impact is going to be, but all I know, this being the kind of man that I am, is that I can no longer, or don't want to, sit on the sidelines and just be a spectator. I want to get involved in some way, but I'm going to do it once I learn more, and the more people who I have a conversation with, to say my impact may be very, very small, but it may be in the whole context of the conversation may be very large.
Makes sense. And
if the only person that gets better by me understanding terms like microaggressions or biases, what it takes to be inclusive, if the only person that benefits from that, and I can have a different interaction with people, and the only person that benefits is me, that's a win.
Yeah, that's a win, because now you become a catalyst for change, and you're taking that into your own community, you're taking that into your own family, you're taking that into your own personal life, and you are impacting those sectors and those people who are close to you. And which brings me to say that, because I remember when we were starting this conversation, like what really made us like narrow to this topic is because, we were just talking about how, a lot of men these days would choose to see feminism, right? And how they would say that, oh, it's more like men versus women, or they are enemies of the state and we have to defend ourselves and we need to defeat them and all that. But then, you came with this very subtle and transformational perspective, which is we have to be allies. We have to educate ourselves about DEI. We need to arm ourselves up with the right tools and resources, right, in order for us to have those conversations. And I really like when you say about asking questions, because that's something a lot of men are not really doing these days. A lot of men are rather just acting rather than asking. And I want to ask you before we finish, I have about 2 more questions. I just want to ask, are there resources that you can recommend for men who are listening to this podcast that they can use to equip themselves and build themselves up while they're coming across DEI?
One of the things that, and yes, I think that's a great question, but one of the books that I just read, and I can't remember the author, so please forgive me, but it's about the ABCs of diversity. And it really just gives this really approachable, sensible, understandable approach to understanding the different levels of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think it really starts there. And for me, that's where it started. That's what actually gave me the courage to be vulnerable enough to be able to say, let's have a conversation about this topic. I wouldn't feel more confident. I'm not saying I'm totally confident. I wouldn't feel more confident without having read that book.
I see.
Right? The next thing is that, hey, LinkedIn, and this is a step that I need to do after I've sort of finished my interviews or asking people that are close to me, or even leaders that I trust that know me, I can easily pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm just trying to understand this from your point of view. Is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions? And get enough of those up under your belt to be able to, it doesn't make a difference. Today we're talking about women, okay? But again, I think it's not just gender, and it's not race specific. It's about anybody who is human that we have interactions with.
Exactly.
Right. So so once you decide that you've do you know enough of, hey, give me permission to ask you about your journey. Tell me about your story. Tell me if you were going to say something to the people in your circle. This is me asking a woman, for example. What would you want them to know? What would you want to tell them? What would you want to tell them about you? What would you want them to tell them about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what you need from them? Right? How do I become an ally? So it really comes with your inner circle, people that you know and trust, asking questions like that, and then deciding your next most logical step of what you're going to do.
I see. Yeah, no, this makes so much sense, because if we begin to start asking those questions and also seeing ourselves as allies, then a lot of the quote unquote negative, the kind of negative tagging that we've, say, some men have been able to tag certain group of people, I don't think there would be. I don't think it will be existing. I feel like it will be reducing, because it's more like people aren't, it's more like, I don't know you, but I've just heard one or two things about you, and it just makes me feel like, oh, you are a bad person. Meanwhile, I have an opportunity to have a conversation with you and ask you those questions, right? Yeah.
You had mentioned the battle of the sort of the gender war, right? That's going on. But it could also be, we have Pride Month that's about to come up here real soon, and it can be that battle as well, right? And I think that it only becomes a battle if you, as an individual, decide to make it one.
I see.
I can make anything a battle, right? But for me, again, I'm gonna go back to what my mama used to tell me.
Yeah.
Is that if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. If this is not a cause that you want to champion, the cause, then don't, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a choice too, right? The choice is, do I want to engage in this topic or do I not want to engage in this topic? That's a choice.
Makes sense. Yeah. And my hope is that as many men who are listening to this, because I strongly believe that, man, we passively or actively influence society, right? And it's more like the more we know, the more we are able to impact society from a confident standpoint, from a very intentional standpoint and a purposeful standpoint. So my hope is that as many men who are listening to this, especially those who might be hearing this for the very first time, this might be that first conversation you're hearing about DEI and all that. And some people don't even know that DEI can be found in their relationships. Some people don't know. Some people think it's only in the workplace. Oh, it's only in the workplace where we see it in our policies, you understand? But again, no, like it happens, it's following you everywhere you are, like everywhere you go, And so for those of you, I hope that, this is a very good introduction to this topic, as well as just guiding you on some of the quote unquote questions that you should be asking. Thank you very much, Herbert. So Herbert, last question I have for you. My audience would definitely want to, reach out to you, and also they want to know, like, where can they find you?
Yeah. So my full name is Herbert Lee Berllinger Jr. And I would say that I'm on LinkedIn. All of my contact information is there, from email to website to setting up a coaching session. All of those things are there. Once you actually put this out for your viewers as well, my email address is Herbie Jr. HERBBJR at IGottaCoach, IGOTTACOACH.net. Hey, one of the things that I want to encourage all men to do is in this journey, no matter what journey we are on in life, and how we interact with the topic that is definitely the highlight of the world, is be true to who you are.
Mm.
Don't try to be someone else. Stand firm. Live up to your own personal definition of what a man should be and who you are as a man. Don't let someone, when we say society, I think it's society or human beings. Don't allow other people in life to decide and define what kind of man you should be. And then do that, and I think you'll always be safe.
Awesome. Oh, this is such a great wrap, honestly. I just like how you said it, because it just ties into the conversations that we've been having on this podcast, and also it just hinges on the core principles that we've been and the theories that we've been exploring. Honestly, yeah, like I just hope that whoever is listening to this, you taking that and you're running with it, you living with it. I really appreciate you, Herbert, for taking your time, and thank you so much for the valuable lessons you've shared with us. And my prayer is that you continue to impact men's life, especially right there in the US and also globally. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Cheers.